Deadline Chapter 15. In the morning, I let myself into the hall's garage around 6:30, which is pretty easy because I left the door unlocked. When I dragged Rudy to bed last night, I'm expecting him to be an asshole of the highest degree, but I played a full football season with Sooner Cowens, and I'm still ambulatory, so it takes a lot to scare me. He is in the exact same position I left him, and if his snoring didn't sound like he's clear-cutting the last stand of yellow pine in the country, I think he might be dead. What the hell? I shake him. He grunts and turns over, so I shake him again. He waves his arms as if I'm a giant mosquito and says something very unpriest-like. I shake him again. He looks up at me, though through me, really. Then I see his eyes, what I can only describe as terror. He shoves me away and sits up. Jesus, Rudy, what's the matter with you? He stands and staggers a few more steps across the greasy concrete floor, runs his hands over his face. You can't come here anymore. I work here. I can come here anytime I want. You need to stay away from me. He said it was a mistake to get sober, a bigger one to start talking to you. Hey, what did I do? Will you just get out of here? No. He glares at me for a long moment, then sighs. I guess this is the only way. There is this desperation in his eyes. Sit down, I sit. He takes a deep breath. I'm a child molester, he says, at which time I stop breathing. He leans his elbows on the workbench, drops his face into his hands. That's why I joined the priesthood. So you could get to kids? My mind is spinning. Jesus, no. So I'd stay away from kids. You sure you want to hear this? I'm not, but I say I am. If I'm going to tell this, I have to tell it all. I can't have you running out of here before it gets said. I want to run now, but I'm fascinated as I am repulsed. I see Dallas and her uncle. I don't see them really. I have never seen her uncle, but you know what I mean. Go ahead. I was in my 20s when I realized I was fascinated with young boys. I tried everything to make it not true. Drank, used drugs, went out with as many pretty girls as would go out with me. Only every time I tried to have sex, it didn't work. And I was thinking about kids, boys. I made a couple of lame suicide attempts, none of which could have killed me. Then I found myself hanging around schools and parks. Scary stuff. I grew up Catholic, so I started going to church every Sunday, sitting in the empty church for hours at a time on weeknights, praying to God to help me. And I thought he did. I walked out of the church late one night knowing my only escape was to give myself over to him. I pledged to enroll in seminary and become a priest. I figured if I stayed as close to God as I could, he'd keep me safe. I've read too many newspapers to think that this was going to turn out well, but I am speechless. I have this awful feeling in the back of my throat, and yet he's Rudy. I mean, I'm not scared of Rudy. Only God was nowhere to be found. Kids were there. He shakes his head slowly as his voice cracks. Sometimes I wonder if I lied to myself, did it on purpose, like you said, to get close to them. I was an altar boy once, though nothing happened to me. You were never molested? I've heard the most molesters were usually molested as kids. I was molested, but not in the church. In fact, it was my priest who got me help. That's another story. I'll tell you that one if you survive this one. At any rate, things were fine for a long time. I was ordained and eventually placed in a small diocese in northern Michigan, pretty close to where I grew up. I did everything by the book. The town loved me. I had fantasies, of course, but I said them out loud to God. Every day I asked him to watch over me, and it seemed as if he did. Keep telling me, he said, and I will keep you safe. Rudy looks towards the center of the ceiling, but way past the corner, if you see his eyes, way past and back in time. Then there was Donnie Blankenship. Great kid, good athlete, His parents brought him to me when he was 11 because they wanted him to experience being an altar boy like his father. The Blankenchips were my friends. They had me to dinner. I played golf with them. I was almost a part of their family. Rudy seems to be talking to himself now, barely aware I'm here. The moment they brought him to me, I was aware of the attraction. I should have said no, made some excuse, but I brought him in. Classic grooming. I prayed and prayed. God kept telling me it was okay, and I had thoughts, but it was my behavior that counted. Keep praying and don't worry. Only it wasn't God talking at all. It was Rudy McCoy settling, baiting the trap. I groomed Donnie and I groomed myself. And then one day he came into my office completely down. His girlfriend had chosen someone else and he was devastated. 13 years old, his first girlfriend. He needed comfort and I gave it to him, and I gave him more. He was confused and I told him all the right lies, how he was special. Maybe it was a good thing that his girlfriend left, and how God wanted him to help a good priest find his way. That the church expected special things from special people. My God, I was making it up as I went, and he was vulnerable and young and confused and scared and the perfect victim. I can't articulate the repulsion I feel. I can see this kid, feel him. He's me trying to take care of Mom, trying to please her, just to be the person who gives her the feeling she never gets. It's me wishing I could make my father feel better, give him something to live for that is for him and not for my broken mother or us. I see Donnie Blankenship like he's in the room. And I went on and I hated myself and told myself I would stop and that I would find a way to make it up to him. But he just got quieter and more compliant. I went to his family's home for the holidays, continued to play golf with his father, sat in the living room, separating myself further and further from the truth. All the signs were there. His parents came to me, said his grades were dropping, and he was losing interest in sports. My God, I counseled him for more than a year as if nothing was going on, and he accepted my counseling. And then I was walking past the pews early one morning and found him slumped to the side with a bullet in through his head, all the evidence of his life drained out in the blood soaking into the wood. I missed him by maybe a half hour. Rudy's eyes well with tears. I murdered a 14-year-old boy. I said I'd stay through this, but I want to run. I just want to run. I can barely breathe. He takes a deep breath. I covered my ass. At his parents' request, I presided over the funeral. His father, who was a pretty tough nut, told me again and again in the back room after the service how grateful he was that his son had me to talk to. He realized how emotionally unavailable he had been. He blamed himself, and I kept quiet. As soon as the church was empty, I got a bottle and started drinking. About midnight, I burned all my vestments in the wood stove in the small dwelling the church provided, got into my car, and started driving. Over the next few months, I discovered that through heavy doses of painkillers, I'd actually been prescribed for a back injury and alcohol. I could blunt my desires. I'd stay drunk and fucked up ever since. I happened to be here in Trout when my car broke down and the Halls took me in to keep me from freezing. I've hid here since. Every day I wake up and I hate myself, and until I fell in with your great experiment of health and supplements, I medicated myself. He numbs and nods, lets out a deep breath, looking away. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. I'm numb. Why are you telling me now? He hangs his head, because I told myself that if I ever gotten close to that position again, I'm out of here. He looks at me. Me? I think it's because you're small, Rudy said. He snorts, a snorting brimming over with self-contempt. You're actually too old for me. I stand. Look, I gotta go. He smiles. He looks tired, not sleepy, life tired. Listen, he said. I put my hands up. I gotta go, Rudy. I gotta go, and I'm gone. I pick up my truck I am in my pickup with the keys in the ignition and the transmission in reverse and my foot on the gas in less time than it takes a NASCAR guy to make a pit stop, and I am driving down Main Street. What in the hell is going on in my short life? I have been on a comment since Doc Wagner delivered my news. The universe has handed me things I never dared to want. Dallas Suzuki, the mantle of the football hero, monstrous esteem, yet it's taking the one thing I took for granted, my life. And now it's showing me that subsidies, paradox, almost no one gets to see. And these subsidies are fucking with my fundamental understanding of right and wrong, which I have got to get down in a hurry because I don't have time not to. The 2 days before my appointment with my new therapist can't pass fast enough. But then, so you're Ben Wolf? Yes, sir. Ben, I'm Dr. Wells. It says on your door that you're Mr. Wells, M.A. That's not a doctor. I don't know why I'm being such a smartass. I think I'm still mad that I lost Marla, and this guy doesn't look like he's going to be a Marla. He smiles. He's probably late 20s, handsome in a dorky way, and wears a tweed jacket, and there is a pipe on his desk. He looks like Lambeard would look if he joined this profession. Just have to defend my thesis, he says. I'm asking my patients to call me doctor, so I get used to it. Done, I said. Do you have a first name? I do, he says, but he doesn't tell me what it is. While I sit looking over Marla's notes, his master's diploma from Stanford is framed on the wall behind him to what I assume is his family coat of arms. Other framed pictures dot his walls, all depicting different facets of his undergraduate and graduate days at Stanford. I wonder what a guy with all this educational ammo is doing in Trout, Idaho. I'm perplexed by what I read here, Ben. If it says what I think it says, I'm perplexed too. What is it you think it says? That I'm toast? That's not the part that perplexes me, he says. What perplexes me is that you've chosen to forego traditional treatment for your disease and that you have chosen to keep it from your loved ones. I start to say I'm perplexed that his perplexed, but decide I don't want to go down in the book of Guinness World Records for the most uses of that word in a dialogue between a midget and a dickwad. I'm not sure I can work with you under these conditions, he says. I look around the room and say, we could turn down the lights and turn up the heat. Excuse me? Different conditions, I said. I detect a little marble muscle on the side of his jaw. When I used to see it on Dad, I called it the O. The way you're handling this situation is foolish, she says. It leaves you with no support, and it also leaves you without a strategy to fight this disease. I'm afraid I might be compelled to bring in reinforcements. What kind of reinforcements? Your parents, possibly your school, he says. He reads a little further. I'm considering reporting this Marla person to the state licensing. She should have never allowed you to follow this course of treatment.